Hello, so today we are going to be talking about Judit Polgar, the Princess of Chess. There's kind of two things to talk about here, the book itself and Judit Polgar. This is by Tibor Karolyi. I'm not sure how his name's pronounced. It is a collection of games played by Judit Polgar throughout her career. It excludes some of the final games of her career, because as far as I understand, this was written before the end of her career. Judit Polgar is unquestionably the strongest female chess player who ever lived, and it's not close, and there's no debate. She is just absolute tremendous chess player. She still is, because she's still alive. When I was teaching chess to kids, sometimes she would come up because I would like to show her games, especially if I had girls in the class, because really strong female chess player. And people asked, oh, could you beat Judit Polgar? And sometimes I'd be like, yeah, I could beat her. And then I'd wake up and apologize because there's no way I could beat her. But yeah, she peaked at number 8 in the world. She is the only woman to beat the reigning world chess champion in a game of chess. It was in a rapid game. She beat Garry Kasparov. And in my estimation, she's one of my favorite chess players, and not because I like her style. She had a very fierce attacking style, which is not really quite how I like to approach the game. I like to move my pieces in circles until my opponent falls asleep. And so stylistically, she's a lot different than what I like. But as far as competitors go, I think she is probably one of the greatest competitors in chess history, maybe the best, and also perhaps one of the strongest competitors overall in terms of her competitive spirit. Although, to be fair, it's not like I have an abundance of information on her, and so I might be reading too much into some of the things I had. But what I find particularly admirable about her is she was never the women's world chess champion. And there's a really good reason why. She never played for it. So she is the strongest woman chess player who ever lived, but she never became world champion of women's chess because she thought it was degrading for her to play in an all-women's tournament. She wanted to be the absolute champion, and she said as much. And so she never played for it. And so she gave up the opportunities of getting money and more press to really take a shot at the crown. And she played in the World's Candidates Championship cycle, or the Candidates. So she was in an 8-person tournament, and she did not win in order to become the challenger to the champion. This was in the early 2000s, I think. And then after that, she had a kid and kind of stopped playing competitive chess. She probably, I think, could have taken a go at it next cycle. The reigning champion, when Judit Polgar was at her strongest, was Garry Kasparov, who's probably the strongest chess player ever. But I particularly find admirable that Judit Polgar didn't go for the low-hanging fruit of just winning all the women's tournaments and just crushing everyone, because she would have just crushed everyone. It wasn't close. It's not even... I think Ho Yufan, who is... actually, I don't even think she's top of the women's right now anymore. But like I think there's been maybe 1 or 2 other women who have broke top 100 chess players, and there's a big difference between top 100 and top 10. And Judit Polgar was an insanely strong chess player. So onto the book a little bit. It's a collection of her games, and this book was written before chess engines like really became a dominant way of analysis, and I'm kind of unimpressed with Tibor Karolyi's writing, but relative to his later stuff, I like his later stuff a lot. Actually, I have most of his books, but this one I didn't like that much. He provides like a lot of lines without too much explanation, and okay, you just kind of like, it's a chess book, so when you're reading through the game, often they'll provide other games, and you can kind of just skip through these variations and lines if you don't want to like play through it, and then you could play through it if you want to take a look. This sorts of things. I was less impressed with his explanation of like what's going on in the games relative to his later books. And so for me, as it's written as a chess analysis book, I don't find it, it rates pretty low to like a medium, but I think that this is the only collection of Judit Polgar's games in English. And so if you want to get a collection of Judit Polgar's games, this is the way to go, as far as I can tell. And I looked around, but maybe I should look again with like the Queen's Gambit coming out and all that stuff, because maybe there's a renewed interest in Judit Polgar. I watched the show. The show was okay, but part of me was like, oh, I wish like they did something about Judit Polgar, because man, she was really good. Let's get into the ratings. For utility, I give it a 3.5. It's a collection of games by very strong players. So if you want to use this to improve your chess game, you can. You know, you can kind of use like any Masters games. I scored it lower than maybe other collections of chess games because I felt that it's perhaps not the most instructive collection, but it is of Judit Polgar's games. And she definitely has some interesting ideas in her games. Particularly, she has a very fierce attacking style and can drum up, you know, difficulties with sometimes very simple play. You know, she's very good at sniffing out the way to move forward in an attack in chess. And so, like, this would be the type of thing you're working on if you're going to read through a collection of her games. For novelty, I gave it a 5.5. There aren't any like chess ideas here that you won't be able to find somewhere else. The novelty is mainly on the back of I find Judit to be an incredibly impressive individual, specifically a competitor, for reasons I gave earlier. And that is the basis on which I kind of recommend the novelty. If you are familiar with Judit Polgar, consider the novelty somewhere like around a 3. Also, to preface these ratings, well, it's sort of not really prefacing anymore. All these ratings are kind of in the context of a chess book, because if you are not into chess, you just shouldn't read any sort of collection of chess books, like at all. Probably not. I suppose you could just ignore all the games, in which case this is maybe like a 20-page book on Judit Polgar. And it's somewhat interesting because Karolyi, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Tibor. He was Hungarian. I'm not 100% sure on the country, just like Judit Polgar, and actually played a lot of games with her, and you know, knew her and her family and this sort of thing. So he had some insights into her. Judit really didn't give a lot of interviews and really is not a lot in English, so it's hard to find information on her from like around when she was really active. She's become more active in like chess streaming and like chess coverage and this type of thing, but it's a bit harder to find old stuff of her. Anyways, for entertainment, I gave it a 5. Her games are very entertaining, and he includes some, you know, stuff on her that is interesting to read and fun to read, and so, okay, it's medium, if you're into chess. For style, I gave it a 4. On average, I would probably rate his style, like, higher than average, like, if you include his other books, but this book, I just, like, he wasn't doing it for me. Like, I really like his Karpov books. Karpov's one of my favorite players, though, so there's that. Okay, for readability, I gave it a 5. He does offer some explanation. It's not, like, completely obscure, where it's just, like, some chess books I've read are just, like, lines and lines and lines of chess. And by lines, I mean different variations, so it's just all chess notation, no explanations. And he offers explanations, and it's written/translated well enough. I'm not sure if he wrote this in English, or if he wrote it in Hungarian and had it translated, but it's, you know, as far as the language goes, it's readable. And for interest, I gave it a 6, largely on the back of her games are really interesting if you are into chess, especially her attacking, if that's what you're looking for, the attacking style. And then also interesting because I find Judit Polgar and what her dad did to tremendously interesting. Laszlo Polgar, which is her father, is actually cited in a ton of books in on the topic of starting early and like this 10,000 hour rule thing. So Laszlo Polgar, what he did is he did not enroll his 3 daughters in regular school. Instead, he kept them at home and he homeschooled them. And as part of their homeschooling, a huge chunk of it was learning chess. And so the idea was, if I take someone just from the beginning of their life and I'm trying to make them into an absolute chess, like, god, can I do that? And I'd say he's largely successful. All 3 of his daughters were extremely strong at chess, and they all didn't, like, stay in chess, but if they wanted to stay in chess, they could have done very well. Judith's sister, I think Susan, might have been Sophia, not 100% sure, did win the Women's World Championship, and she didn't lose it by losing it in a game, but she instead kind of got into a disagreement with the organizer and forfeited the title. She, like, wanted it to be rescheduled because I think she was pregnant, and, like, it would have been, like, when she's, like, 8 or 9 months pregnant when they wanted to have the tournament, and she's like, we're not doing that, or something like this. I don't remember the exact details, but she did not lose it by losing a match. And so the question answered by, like, Laszlo Polgar, or, like, posed, I suppose, is, like, can you make someone really, really good at something if you start early? And the answer is yes. And there's some debate on this insofar as, where's the book? So there's another book called Range, which I've referenced somewhat often. This provides the other side of the coin. So for the Laszlo Polgar, and Tiger Woods is also the second most common example, where his dad, like, was teaching him a putt before he could walk, where you have these people start really early, they hyper specialize, and they just get unfathomably good at their sport or whatever it is. Tiger Woods is just insanely good at golf, and that he can still play now is, like, even though he's been, like, beaten up, like, a ton by life and, like, everything, is just insane to me. But there's this 10,000 hour school, which is specialized, and then there's this school proposed by Range, which argues that you should be a generalist and come from a bunch of different approaches. And they make this distinction that in some things, there's 2 different types of, like, learning or innovation. I forget what word, like, would be proper, but they can be, like, wicked or kind. And a wicked environment is highly unpredictable, and variables change, and innovation is generally considered to be wicked because you don't know what you need to know. And then there are learning environments that are kind, like, because everything is predictable and they follow the same patterns and, like, this sort of stuff. And chess and golf fall under this latter category, and whereas something like inventing stuff would not fall under this category. And so what the author argues is that, for things that are kind learning environments, hyper-specialization, you'll just crush people. Like, so chess, you just brute force hours. If you spent more hours studying, you'll just crush your opponents. But stuff like innovation, and I'm trying to think of another example. It might have been, like, jazz music, where, like, learning a bunch of different instruments is, like, more useful than just learning one. Something like this. But there's other situations where hyper-specialization isn't useful, and instead it's good to, learn from a bunch of different areas. Anyways, bit of a tangent. The book is interesting. You do get a little bit of that Laszlo Polgar information. It is, which I think is perhaps a case study type thing that everyone should know about, but you don't have to learn about it in this book. And this book isn't particularly good at explaining it because it's focused on Judith. And so, okay. For an overall rating, I think it was a 4.83, which is actually, like, lower than I think it deserves. But, okay, as far as recommendations go, if you are looking, you have to be specifically looking for a Judit Polgar games collection book for me to recommend this, and that's just pretty much it. stuff on Judit Polgar. Yeah, actually, it just has to. You have to be specifically looking for a Judit Polgar games collection. In which case, I would recommend this. But if you are looking for a game on, or like a book on learning how to attack in chess, I would not recommend this. Even if you wanted to like look at this author specifically, I'd recommend his Tal books on Mikhail Tal, which came quite a bit later after the Judit Polgar books. I think those are better. If you wanted a collection of games of an attacking player. You have to be really specific on the wanting a collection of Judit Polgar games, because I don't think the quality is especially high, so if you're not really specifically looking for this, I would just recommend looking elsewhere. For discussion as far as discussion goes, does anyone here play chess? And follow up, if not, does anyone here play any board game at a competitive type of level, like shogi or Go or any of this stuff? Always interested to hear about some of those things. And do the YouTube stuff. So comment, like, subscribe, share, all this jazz. I've been slacking on the reminding people to do the YouTube stuff, because I think it's like always implied, but maybe it's not. Maybe I get more whatever's this way. Anyways, have a good one.